Hi everyone, my name is Diana. I run all things laser earrings. I love to come on and talk to you about laser earrings, like materials, tips and tricks on how to make them. And today we're talking about design. We're talking about 4 things that you should think about when you're designing earrings. And I'm going to show you a little bit of an evolution of design here, like from when I first cut it out to how I then like adapted it um to because what I thought would be a better design. Okay, so 4 things, just very summarize this. One is size. Obviously, the size of the earring is really important, and the size in relationship to like if it has a second element to the earring. Two is making sure your engraved lines are wide enough so that it can take paint fill if that's what you're doing. Three is making sure it's not your cutout lines aren't too fragile and things are going to make sure that like certain areas won't be completely cut out and destroyed, especially because not everyone has a very powerful laser, and I have to keep reminding myself that because I have a Mirror 9 which cuts really, really, really precisely, but I used to have a glow forge and it never cut precisely, and it was probably my fault. My settings were just not very good. So you need to take into consideration that not everyone has a great laser. And also number 4, should you cut out spaces or should you have them as engraved spaces? So we're going to talk about each one of these individually and um, talk about like what I changed and why I changed them. Okay, let's start here. Size. Size is important, right? Sometimes when you're designing, I'm like, I don't know, 1.5, that's perfect. That's a total perfect size of an earring. This is 1.5. And then some 1.5, this is 1.5, maybe it was a little smaller. I tend to design for drops around 1.5 inches, and it's like a general rule. But sometimes you do 1.5, and it's just the shape of the earring. Once you cut it out, you're like, ooh, that's maybe a bit too massive. I have nothing against really big earrings, but sometimes you're like, I think that's just maybe a little too big, a little too heavy. The same thing happened on this one, especially because I'd made a top bit and I was like, you know what, that is just not proportional here. Let me put it here so you can see that this does not look proportional to me. And maybe you prefer this, and I have nothing against big earrings. But if you are designing for more, not mass market, but for, like for, let's just say in general, people don't like massive earrings, right? You can always have some bigger designs, but also you have to look at the actual design. And I felt for this one, this had more of a delicate touch to it. It's like, like plants going up. I was like, I don't think that should be a massive earring. So then I made it a little bit smaller, as you can see. And I was like, okay, that's better. But then, like, all of a sudden, I'm like, my brain is like, you know what? I really think this needs to be a more delicate earring. And I actually really like it as a more delicate. I think this is 1.2. Don't get me wrong, 1.3, 1.2. And you don't see it very well. This is not like filming well, but it's like the vines, and I think it just looks better as a smaller earring. This one, I just thought that this as a whole just ended up being too big. And also because I wanted to do some inlay, I was like, I think I'm just gonna make this a little bit smaller, and I much prefer it as a smaller earring. I love the moon and the cactus, and it's just kind of like a fun earring for me and a good size. Um, Okay, other number 2, let's move on to engraved lines. Something that is a very common mistake when people first start designing is that they do not make their engraved areas big enough, especially when you're going for a more delicate look. So that's where there is really a fine line between like this engraved line is going to paint fill well and this engraved line is really not going to paint fill well because it's just not wide enough. And so you have it here where I had this like moth on here, and you can see it didn't paint fill very well here. And paint filling is a good way of testing an engraved line. And it's just not, like, even if I had it on frosted clear where you don't need to paint fill, this would not have translated very well. So I just went in and I expanded the area of the engrave, and that paint filled really well, and on frosted clear it'll look beautiful. So sometimes all you have to go in is just offset your area a little bit and just test it and see at what point, keep paint filling it and see at what point it paint fills well enough for it to be a delicate design, because not everything has to be a massive graphic design. Some things could be more delicate. This is a more delicate design. This is a more delicate design. So yeah, so very easy. Just go in and offset, and you're not offsetting by a lot. Like I literally on these, I think I offset by, let me think, 0.002, but on both sides, so that to make it equal, to make it like similar. So I offset, I think 0.001 or 0.002 on in both directions, so that the design remains the same. Because if you only do it in outer or inner, then your design can start warping a little. So you have to remember to do it in both directions. So now I love this earring. It is a very subtle engrave, but I love it. Not everything has to be very graphic. And then let's go in the other direction. Something that's a lot more graphic. Wait, I have to do this in order for you to see it. Here I have to make sure that since there are some closer areas, that it's not going to get chewed out. And so I did change certain elements of this design. You can see here, I don't know if you can see very well, but the middle, the teeth were getting too chewed out. So I actually lessened the amount of teeth and I gave them more space. Even on this outer area too, because this is kind of like a papel picado, you know, the Day of the Dead. It's kind of an homage to that. That's what I was thinking of when I made these. I also made this a little bit, I offset it in a little, so there's a little bit more like non-cut area basically. So I made the cut area a little bit smaller. I actually think I might go in and just offset it a little bit more, just because I think on a cutter that isn't as strong, a laser cutter that isn't as strong, this might still get chewed out. So I'm actually still going to move these teeth a little bit. And I'm going to offset just this a little bit more, just to guarantee that we don't have problems, that people don't have problems. And then here, for example, this is a more extreme example of that. Sorry, I didn't take all the paper off because I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. But isn't this a cute little, I love this. I will put these acrylics down in, it's like a small shop on Etsy that makes just little, like you can get a 4x4, which I think is great for testing out different acrylics and if you're making earrings and not things. So Sparkfire on Etsy. So this one I really wanted to make like an antique frame. My brain just wants to take this off now. Antique frame that also kind of was very swirly and kind of delicate. But then when I first cut this, I'm like, this is way too delicate. This is just easily snap off, especially because I'm making them as inlay earrings. So they cannot be that delicate. So then I changed design. You can see I thickened the lines. If I come here, let's see if you can see it better. So you can see how delicate this one is. This one definitely the lines got thickened. But then the design did something funky where it has these pieces sticking out. And with, see if you see them, the pieces sticking out on both sides. And you really don't want that in acrylic. You see 1, 2, those pieces sticking out. You don't want that in acrylic because anything that sticks out a little bit can break off. Acrylic is strong, but not that strong. It is a little bit delicate. So I was like, you know, this is not going to work to have these little pieces sticking out. So then I totally like thickened the lines. Looking compared to the beginning, this is how I started. This is how I ended. And everything is like encapsulated. There's nothing sticking out on its own. You really want smooth lines on the outside. You don't want anything that sticks out. And so anything that is smooth is protecting pretty much, it's protecting the design on the inside. So this is a way stronger design than this was basically. And it's still just as cute. I mean, just because it's not super delicate doesn't mean it's not cute. I think this is a really fun antique frame. And then the last one, like, should I cut out? Should I engrave? I mean, you can always offer both options. I like to offer as many options as possible. And on a design like this, I kind of think both of them kind of look good. But I tend to like a lot everything. So I think I'm actually going to offer this in both ways, and the person can choose. They can choose to paint fill, or they can just choose to cut it out. Look, it's so fun in the shimmer. So yeah, so those are like the 4 things I think you should keep in mind when you are designing earrings, size, what will look good with the design, especially because in relation to design, one earring at 1.5 does not look the same as another design in 1.5. So always be conscious of the total like volume. Like this is just was a very big earring at 1.5. And then if there's an extra element, is that just not looking proportional, just not looking good? So always try to have proportion in mind. The engraved lines, make sure your engraved lines are wide enough to allow for paint fill. So you should always give that as an option to people to paint fill their earrings. If you're fully cutting out your earrings, make sure it's not too delicate so that it's not going to snap off, or it's not going to be, not going to get chewed up by the machine. And then if you're doing a delicate design, once again, that's cut off, make sure all edges are protected, that you're not going to have bits sticking out, and that it's strong enough, especially if you're inlaying. If you're inlaying, it has to have a little bit of strength because you don't want to be snapping your acrylic as you go along. And then the engrave versus cut. I mean, sometimes you can offer both. Very popular to offer engraving and scoring because scoring is generally way faster to do in machines than engraving. And for example, in this case, this earring to cut out would be way faster than this earring to engrave. So yeah, so I hope that helped. And if you have any questions, please let me know below. I love answering questions. If you want to join a really supportive community where I share all my tutorials and I help people and love, I really encourage people to share their projects, come join me on Facebook and All Things Laser Earrings. And I have a membership where you can get 10 files a month. And you can have access to all my courses. So everything's there in like a linear and very organized fashion, very easy to learn. And thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you have